So welcome everybody to the first edition of the MedTech20. We're super happy to launch this initiative, and we're going to be doing this on a bi-monthly basis. Like I mentioned in the previous video, we've got a really interesting roster of guests to have conversations with, and our guest today is a fellow named Gregg Tobin. He is one of the executive partners at Corza Health. They're part of the GTCR group, and they do a lot of investing in the life sciences space. So we're going to talk to Gregg a little bit about the kinds of things he's doing with Corza Health, the kinds of markets they're interested in, where they make their investments, and how they plan strategically for those investments. And so let's get into this conversation without further ado, and hope you enjoy it. So Gregg, welcome to the MedTech20. You and I have known each other for, I guess, coming up to a couple of years here, but you are the first guest on the MedTech20. So a big welcome to you, and look forward to having this conversation.
Good afternoon, Gordon. Great to see you as well. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm excited to speak with you about some of the trends that I'm seeing in the MedTech market. There are certainly benefits in going first. Hopefully you and I will make this an interesting exchange of ideas and insights regarding MedTech 2020.
So Gregg, you and I originally met back in 2018, I think it was, in California for the MD&M West exhibition out there in Anaheim. And since then, we did do one piece of work together in Europe with your previous company, where you were the president of a contract manufacturing business, and we'll get into all the details of what you're up to now, etc. But I was trying to think of the last time that we saw each other, and I think it was at PharmaPack. So right before everything started to boil over a little bit with COVID, if I'm not mistaken.
You're absolutely right. The last time we saw each other in person was in Paris at the PharmaPack Europe conference, also known as the Drug Delivery Conference, or at least that's how I think about it. It's great to see you. I know we were able to spend a couple of quality days together, and I thought overall the conference, the PharmaPack conference, was really, really insightful and beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely, and hopefully things start to kind of normalize a little bit more throughout the world here. But let's talk about some happier things. You are now with a business called Corza Health, which is a private equity firm based out of California. I imagine that there are a number of people that probably don't know the Corza Health business, so love to hear a little bit about your position, but maybe we can talk a little bit at the start here about who is Corza Health, and yeah, just give us a little bit of background on that.
Thanks, Gordon. I think that's a great starting point for us. So Corza Health is a life sciences company. We were organized last year. Corza Health was formed as a partnership between Greg Lucier and a large private equity investor out of Chicago known as GTCR. And our mandate is to build global life science companies. We have really 3 or 4 industry segments that are of interest to us: medical devices, life science tools, and medical device contract manufacturing. We also find healthcare IT very interesting as well, and so we're looking at some opportunities there. We have a global perspective. We're looking at making investments in North America, Europe, and building out our companies, again, throughout the world, which would include Asia. My background, as you know, I've been working in the life sciences for 25 years. I've been an operator. I've been a private equity investor. And most recently, I was running a medical device contract manufacturing company.
Right. Okay. So a couple of points that are probably worth picking up on from that, Gregg. You mentioned Greg Lucier, obviously somebody who's fairly well known within the life sciences space. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about his background. You also mentioned the relationship with GTCR. So maybe we'll start with a bit about Gregg's background, and then we can talk a little bit about the relationship between GTCR and Corza Health.
Well, Greg Lucier has certainly been a very successful life sciences executive. He was a former GE executive before taking over and running Life Technologies as CEO and chairman. So Greg ran several different businesses within GE for a number of years, and I had the opportunity to work for him for a number of years. I actually worked in his organization. When he left GE, after a very successful career, he took over as the CEO and chairman of again, Life Technologies, which is a global life science tools company. And he grew that business from $400 million to about $4 billion when he sold it in, I believe it was 2015, to Thermo Fisher. And he took Invitrogen, which again was about a $400 million company, and really expanded it globally. Built out the services capabilities, the product portfolio, introduced operational excellence, grew organically, did several really successful value-creating acquisitions, and then, as I said earlier, successfully sold the business to Thermo Fisher. And as we talk later in this discussion, the Corza playbook is really it really is kind of based upon a lot of the GE operating principles that we've learned and employed, and a lot of what Greg utilized in his role at Life Technologies. He currently serves as the chairman of NuVasive, which is a spine therapy company. He was previously CEO, and he sits on the boards of other life science companies. So there's a lot of value, a lot of best practices that he can offer to some of our partner companies, and that's an interesting and a very exciting part of Corza Health, and I know we'll talk about that throughout this discussion.
Yeah, it's good to hear a little bit about Greg Lucier's background. So thanks for sharing that. It would also be good to hear a little bit about your role at Corza Health, the kinds of things that you're working on, and maybe some of the market categories or product categories that Corza Health is interested in exploring as a business.
So I was hired into Corza Health as an executive operating partner, and my role is multifaceted. Number one, I spend quite a bit of time building and developing investment strategies for the life sciences. As I stated earlier, we have a global vision, and so these investment themes, these investment strategies, have to be successful in the U.S., Europe, and Asia. So spend quite a bit of time developing the strategies. Two, once we identify a company where we can partner, I spend quite a bit of time with the management team, hearing about their vision, understanding their objectives, and discussing how we can work together, how we can partner to further grow the company. So that's the second area where I spend quite a bit of time. Thirdly, once we identify a company and there's a good fit both ways, we spend quite a bit of time developing the specific growth strategy for partnering going forward. So if we're going to make an investment or acquire a significant portion of the business, how are we going to run the company post-closing? What markets are we going to pursue? What acquisitions are we going to pursue? What new products are we going to introduce? How do we improve margins? How do we win new customers? And so it's a really a comprehensive part of my role, and that's a portion that I really love. Post-closing, we work very closely with the team to actually execute. A big part of our value proposition is execution. My colleagues and I have been running companies for many years. We have a lot of operating experience, and so we bring that to our partner companies to help with the execution strategy.
Okay, and so again, what kind of businesses are you most interested in?
We have really kind of four key areas within life sciences that are of interest to us. So think about life science tools, for example. That's an area where we have a lot of domain expertise and a lot of interest going forward. So an example might be reagents, tools and inputs that are used in vitro diagnostics and are used within drug discovery. So that's one area of interest to us. Second area is in medical devices. The team here at Corza, we have a lot of medical products, medical device experience, and so we think there are some very interesting investment opportunities to build out global businesses within medical devices. Thirdly, we love medical device contract manufacturing. We think that's a very interesting trend, and we very interested in meeting companies where we can partner to further grow businesses in that sector. And then fourth, I would say technology or informatics. So using information technology to really enable productivity. Supply chain, for example, how can we make the supply chain more efficient, more productive using software technology as an example? So that's the fourth area where we spend quite a bit of time.
Okay, and so we had talked or touched briefly on the relationship with GTCR. I'm sure most people know who GTCR is, but maybe we could explore a little bit further about the relationship between Corza Health and GTCR, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about what GTCR is kind of bringing to the table.
Corza Health is one of the portfolio companies of GTCR. They've been investing for 40 years, as you know. They've been very, very successful. They're probably one of the most well-respected, successful private equity investors in North America. And they have a 40-year track record of building, operating companies throughout several different industrial segments. And life sciences and healthcare is certainly an area of expertise where they have a lot of domain experience. If you look at the companies that they've built over the years, a significant amount of capital has been invested in healthcare. So they've built out life science companies to include those that are in the tools space, medical device contract manufacturing, medical devices, healthcare information technology. And so it's a really great partnership. As I mentioned earlier, my colleagues and I have a tremendous amount of operating experience in the life sciences. And now we're partnered with a preeminent investor out of Chicago who has as much, if not more, industry experience within the life sciences. And so as we were talking earlier about the value that we bring to our partner companies, it's enormous, right? Think about the operating experience of Corza Health. Think about the investment experience, the successes that GTCR has had. And that's a tremendous amount of value that we can bring to these operating companies, to these executive teams, and to shareholders. And so it's really fun to engage companies and talk about how we can help them. They've already been successful, and so there's an opportunity for Corza GTCR to come in and continue with that success.
Great, great. So, one of the hot topics of the day, obviously, is the continual trajectory towards digital enablement, connected devices, that kind of thing. I think, particularly in this time of COVID, where people may not have as easy access to medical services, I think that's really kind of highlighted, the need for continuation of development around connected devices and digital enablement, things like telehealth, etc. So love to hear a little bit about your thoughts on these kind of trends, and if that plays a part in your thinking about what kind of businesses that you're investing in.
Yeah, definitely, Gordon. This is really an exciting topic to discuss. So as you think about digital enablement, if you think about connected medical devices, it's definitely a growing area, and it's a very exciting area. So over the last 20 years, hospitals, providers have been enabling their locations, their facilities with the electronic medical record, the electronic health record, right? They want to gather data that can allow them to make better operating decisions, better clinical decisions, and overall positively impact outcomes. So it's better for the patient, it's better for the provider, and it's better for the payer. So there's a lot of economic benefit in having data and being able to make better decisions. And so the next natural extension is being able to measure more clinical data with devices as an example. So taking various interventional devices, catheters, for example, and measuring different clinical elements and performance of the patient is extremely beneficial. And you're going to see that continue to evolve. A lot of the conversations that I have now with the medical device OEMs is around digital enablement and making smarter devices. So to answer your question about how does it affect our strategy, we are looking for those opportunities where the company has already started developing those capabilities, or at least they're thinking about those, and or they have a pathway to developing smarter devices. Combining computer software, embedded chips with devices is the way of the future. And it's really interesting to see the advancements, the progress that has already taken place. But it's absolutely a very exciting area. And these devices, these smart devices, are going to be diagnostic in nature, and they're going to be therapeutic, where physicians can make real-time decisions within the therapy based on some of the real-time clinical data that they're receiving as the procedure is underway.
So the last 6 months have certainly been an interesting time in our world. Almost every sector has been affected by COVID, and it's kind of hard to have a conversation without covering that topic, obviously. But I'd love to hear from your perspective as a private equity investor. What kind of impact has that had on your business, on the investment decisions? I'd be curious to know if it's maybe opened up some new opportunities, or if it's potentially put the brakes on some things. Maybe you could talk a little bit more about the evaluation process, if that's changed at all in the wake of COVID, and just your general feeling on how things are moving forward as hopefully we kind of ease our way out of this pandemic.
Interesting topic. As we entered Q1 of 2020, the global markets were performing really, really well. The markets were strong. I think most every industrial segment around the world, was experiencing just really strong performance. Unemployment in the U.S. was at an all-time low, and starting at the end of February, at least here in the U.S., as the contagion was spreading and the number of cases were increasing, we started seeing a slowdown. And it's really interesting when you look at it from a quantitative perspective. Let's say revenue, you could see how order volume was slowly decreasing over that period of time from the beginning of March all the way through the end of April. So the activity for us did slow a little bit. Some of those conversations were paused. Some were, I would say halted indefinitely, and then some continued. And so the good news is, as we're talking here today, the overall demand has increased. It's not quite to the level of where it was for us. I'd say maybe 90-95%, but it's now, I think it's kind of behind us. So for us, it's business as usual. We're really excited, and we're having some really interesting conversations with some very interesting companies.
Well, that's great to hear, Greg, and it's good to see some positive signs. I know that the people that I talk to at other businesses, and even in my own business, I think we're starting to see some signs of recovery and good things to come, let's say. So, thanks for everything that you've shared up till this point. It's been really interesting, and I figured as we kind of round out the conversation, bring it to a little bit of a close, it would be really interesting to hear a little bit about yourself and your activities outside of your professional life. What keeps you occupied?
The fun topic. Gordon, as you know, I'm extremely active as you are. Absolutely love exercising. So I love to swim, bike, run. Love lifting weights. I find that it boosts my energy level. It gives us a clear mind. We have clear thought. So I view that as really kind of an adjunct to my professional life. I think the more I exercise, the more active I am, the better I am professionally. So there's definitely some synergies there. I invest a significant amount of time in family. It's very important to me. Spend a lot of time with friends, and absolutely love meeting new people and building relationships. I don't think I've ever met a stranger, and so I just can't wait to meet the next person. And the world is a fascinating place. There are just really amazing people around the world, and I just love meeting them, and kind of experiencing the fruits of life.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the first edition of the MedTech20 with Gregg Tobin. You can check out Corza Health at www.corzahealth.com. Gregg's profile is up there as well, and I'm sure you'd be happy to hear if you want to reach out to him. So thanks again, and we will see you on the next one.